I'm Natalie with TheWrap. Thank you so much for doing this. I wanted to get started with so a lot of the show unfolds through these like allegorical stories that the characters tell each other. If anyone wants to jump in on this, if you could talk about the importance of storytelling, not only as an escape for the Midnight Club, but also as a way to connect with each other.
Well, yeah, I'll do it. We've talked about this a lot, like as a group, that when they do come to the Midnight Club, it is a way sort of for them to say all the things that they want to say, sort of like therapy, and to do it in a way where they don't have to just bear it all, they can tell it in this fantastical way through this story. Like I think specifically for Sandra, like in her story, she has a hard time sometimes connecting to the other members of the group, and she feels that they see her a certain way. And so through her story, she's kind of telling them how she feels and how she feels she's being treated, while also kind of opening herself up in her mind to like them as well, if that makes sense.
For Iman and Igby, I'm going to ask a spoiler question that won't run until like after the show premieres. Do you know who the old ghosts are? I know in the book they're supposed to be like older paranormal versions of your characters, but is there anything you know about that?
Yeah, so I'm actually the old man, and Egby's the old woman in like a different life, right, Egby? That's correct?
Mhm. That's correct, yeah.
Can add more.
Is there any info on where that could potentially go, or have you talked about like potential further storylines on that?
I think the main theme with that idea is rebirth and sort of a idea of soulmates or people who are meant to be together. And I think hopefully that is where that's going.
Ruth, a question for you. Could you talk about the episode where Anya imagines she's a year out from Bright Cliff, and there's that, the whole episode is her eventually making peace with dying, and it's so emotional and it's so wide-ranging. And what was that like for you as a performer?
It was sad. It was sad because I never acted before, so I wasn't really sure how it works. But the way I view Anya is she's kind of like a twin that follows you around everywhere. So then in 7, I felt sorry. I felt so bad for her because even in her mind, when everything does work out, she's still miserable. And she needed her friends to come in and say like, no, it worked out this way for you. And, because you deserve to have nice things. And I think deep down Anya thinks she doesn't, because she's constantly punishing herself. But yeah, it's weird. I kind of view Anya as like a real person that follows me around everywhere. It consumes my every thought.
Like a twin in the actual episodes earlier. But yeah. This is for everyone who wants to chime in. What were some of the challenges or, high points of making this sprawling show?
I think just in general for me, like it's very weird to. Were you speaking, Chris?
Yeah, you're muted.
Okay.
No.
Sorry. For me, because this is my first project, shooting things out of order. Like the way that they sequence shot lists and stuff, sometimes it's out of order. So you might do a scene that's like further down in the episode, but you do that first and then you do like the very beginning last. And so you have to like replicate your emotions. And then also if we're doing retake after retake after retake, you have to stay in that emotion, the amount of tears that we had coming down our face, makeup coming in to fix it because continuity, that was really hard for me. And trying to match my emotions so that they were like cohesive. That was very difficult.
Yeah, like for the show just in general, there's so many, it's a roller coaster of emotions. There's so many highs and more like humorous aspects of things. And I think a big challenge is kind of being able to, bring the truth and authenticity of, what we're dealing with as our characters, but on top of that, bringing kind of a lightness and a humor and community and friendship towards like the storyline as well. And just always keeping that in mind, just making sure that it's like a wave of things that, we're experiencing.
Yeah. One practical challenge was in episode 5, me and Natsuki have this really very like vulnerable scene, and we're sitting on this log at the beach, and it's nighttime, but it's like 3 a.m. Sorry, 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And the sun in Canada rises very early in the morning. So we're
Especially in
like
the summer.
racing the sun, like it's supposed to be set in nighttime, but like the sun is rising, we can see it. And I'm like, yeah. And like it's like a very vulnerable scene. And like the director yells, cut, he goes, cut. And he's like running, he's sprinting down. He's like, okay, that was great. Just all right, cool. And he's running right back on sand, trying to beat the sun. And I'm like, okay. And then you do the whole thing again. And then yeah, it looks great. I know it looks great, but
Yeah.
it was cool to see, like, okay, that was a very
Yeah.
challenging scene.
It was very, very hard. It was such, because the tone of like that scene was so, grounded. It's like, it's very heavy in terms of like what we're talking about. But yeah, it was actually super rushed in a sense. And, there was a lot of anxiety in regards to that. So
Yeah.
we did good. Both
Yeah.
me and Sorry.
You did great.
Yeah.
Chris, if you wanted to chime in as well.
Yeah, I would say that I think a lot of the challenges for me was like, I know the show obviously grapples with so many heavy subjects, and I just remember like being up like on nights like those to like 4 a.m. like bawling on the beach with all of us, and we're all like, and then like you get home and you're like, oh wow, like how do I take that off? You know what I mean? You're not just like Elmo at Disney, you can just take your head off and then go on with your day. It's like that's you, and all of those emotions are still there, and you tapped into them. And so I think and at the time I was like 18, I just left high school, and I had already felt like my youth was dead, and I was like, oh my god, my youth is dying, it's fleeting from my hands. And then they're like, all right, now go to set, your youth is fading away and you're dying. And I was like, great, so now I'm losing my youth both ways. But I think a great way that I like got to balance that was just by like bonding with the cast and like knocking on Igby's door at 3 a.m. and like waking him up and being like, dude, we need a bottle opener, you know what I mean? Or like whatever, like those kind of things definitely helped me come back into myself, I guess.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback on what Chris was saying, because it kind of just reminded me, but yeah, in general, like most of us, especially being new to like, these kinds of roles and positions and stuff, there was a big sense of pressure, especially with Mike having such a big following, and there's a lot of expectation. There was a bit of pressure to always do good, and that was always a really big challenge that I think a lot of us were dealing with. But despite that, because we were all in it together, we were all like feeling the same feelings in regards to that. Yeah, it kind of got us to bond and be really close and find comfort in each other to keep each other going.
Hearing you all speak, like obviously there's a sense of camaraderie, not only offset but on screen as you're watching the Midnight Club like get closer. So what do you hope like audiences connect with? I mean, there's so many themes like you guys talked about that are presented that are relatable to so many people. So if anything like jumps out at you in the story that you hope people resonate with.
At least for Natsuki's case, mental health issues. I think this is like a big, thing. For me, I feel like within like the Asian community in particular, we don't talk a lot about mental health stuff, but I hope people can kind of see, especially looking at Natsuki and seeing how much of an importance there is to, talk, to express, what's going on, to have a community that you can fall back to, a strong network to lean on. So
I would say permission to be youthful and be kids. Because I think a lot of times, especially on the cusp of our ages, like we're all kind of on the cusp of adulthood, but we're still kids. We don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have everything figured out. You can still be a kid and you can still live life. Even if you have, adult-like situations that you're dealing with, you can still be youthful and have fun and tell ghost stories.
I love that.
I mean, I'm 26. I'm full-fledged adulthood at this point.
We can still tap into the youthful energy.
Yeah, I mean, Ruth and I are both like the oldest in the group, but we definitely don't act like it.
No, we're the
No.
most. We're always the ones cracking on set as well.
Yeah, on set, it was really hard to keep it together between the two of us.
I can't look eye in the eye sometimes on days when I have the gig. I'm off, then I'm done for the day.
Like the day I was crawling on the table in the first episode, the look that Ruth gives me as I'm like staring at her crawling, that every time I think I broke down, started crying, laughing, and Mike came over and he was like, "What's wrong with you?"
I wanted to also ask the last cliffhanger. What would you want to see if season 2 were to happen? It's a huge open-ended question, but I was like, I watched this all, like, full disclosure, I watched this all yesterday. It was just like a roller coaster of emotions, and that last like 2 minutes was crazy. So if anyone wants to chime in on that.
I have a wild idea. I think it would be so cool if Stanton at least one time joined the Midnight Club and told a story of her own. I think that would be so dope.
That's a great idea. I love that.
Mhm.
Anyone else that wants to chime in as well?
I hope we get a bloodbath. I hope it's just bloody, dead people everywhere. I hope Mike just really sends a lot of people to the grave. That's what
Like
I'm
in a
hoping.
story or like in real life?
In all regards, I just want to
Like,
see blood.
just
I
a
want to see
free-for-all.
fatalities. That's what I'm wishing for.
I love that. Well, from your lips to Mike's ears, I guess.
Don't worry, I'm on it.